things, because when they do things, they like to do it. Anyways, welcome to chapter 13 of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and we will just continue with the story now, besides a little remark by me. If you may have wondered throughout the plot in the last chapters that when Van Helsing is talking, why am I reading him with such a hard dialect? The reason is that Stoker actually set high values on the heritage of the character, and as you surely know, he's a English person, Dutch and German person, as well as I'm German, and I read Van Helsing with a German dialect, the typical one, the typical German that cannot really express the TH sound, because it doesn't exist in our language. So I'm over-the-topping my own dialect that I usually have by mocking my people. Yeah, they are not my people. It's just an expression that came to my mind. So let's just start up before we have talking and no reading. Chapter 13. Dr. Seward's diary. Continue. The funeral was arranged for the next succeeding day, so that Lucy and her mother might be buried together. I attended to all the ghastly formalities, and the urbane undertaker proved that his staff were afflicted or blessed with something of his own obsequious suavity. Even the woman who performed the last offices for the dead remarked to me in a confidential, rather professional way when she had come out from the death chamber, "She makes a very beautiful corpse, sir. It's quite a privilege to attend on her. It's not too much to say that she will do credit to our establishment." I noticed that Van Helsing never kept far away. This was possible from the disordered state of things in the household. There were no relatives at hand, and as Arthur had to be back the next day to attend at his father's funeral, we were unable to notify anyone who should have been bidden. Under the circumstances, Van Helsing and I took it upon ourselves to examine papers, etc. He insisted upon looking over Lucy's paper himself. I asked him why, for I feared that he, being a foreigner, might not be quite aware of English legal requirements, and so might in ignorance make some unnecessary trouble. He answered, I know, you forget that I am a lawyer as well as a doctor. But this is not altogether for the law. You know that when you avoided the coroner, I have more than him to avoid. There may be papers such as this. As he spoke, he took from his pocketbook the memorandum which had been in Lucy's breast, and which she had torn in her sleep. No. When you find anything of the solicitor who is for the late Mrs. Westenra, seal all her papers, and write him tonight. For me, I watch here in the room and in Miss Lucy's old room all night, and I myself search for her what may be. It is not well that her very thoughts go into the hands of strangers. I went on with my part of the work, and in another half hour had found the name and address of Mrs. Westenra's solicitor and had written to him. All the poor lady's papers were in order. Explicit directions regarding the place of burial were given. I had hardly sealed the letter when, to my surprise, Van Helsing walked into the room, saying, "Can I help you, friend John? I am free, and if I may, my service is to you." "Have you what you look for?" I asked, to which he replied, "I did not look for any specific thing. I only hoped to find, and find I have, all that there was. Only some letters and a few memoranda, and a diary new begun. But I have them here, and we shall for the present say nothing of them. I shall see that poor lad tomorrow evening, and with his sanction I shall use some." When we had finished the work in hand, he said to me, "And now, friend John, I think we may to bed. We want sleep, both you and I, and rest to recuperate. Tomorrow we shall have much to do, but for that night there is no need of us. Alas!" Before turning in, we went to look at poor Lucy. The undertaker had certainly done his work well, for the room was turned into a small chapel ordained. There was a wilderness of pitiful white flowers, and death was made as little repulsive as might be. The end of the winding shear was laid over the face when the professor bent over and turned it gently back. We both started at the beauty before us, the tall wax candle showing us sufficient light to note it well. All Lucy's loveliness had come back to her in death, and the hours that had passed, instead of leaving traces of decay's effacing fingers, had but restored the beauty of life. Till positively I could not believe my eyes that I was looking at a corpse. The professor looked sternly grave. He had not loved her as I had, and there was no need for tears in his eyes. He said to me, "Remain till I return," and left the room. He came back with a handful of wild garlic from the box waiting in the hall, but which had not been opened, and placed the flowers amongst the others on and around the bed. Then he took from his neck inside the collar a little golden crucifix and placed it over the mouth. He restored the sheet to its place, and we came away. I was undressing in my own room when, with a premonitory tap at the door, he entered and at once began to speak. "Tomorrow I want you bring me, before night, a set of post-mortem knives." "Must we make an autopsy?" I asked. "Yes and no. I want to operate, but not as you think. Let me tell you now, but not a word to another. I want to cut off her head and take out her heart." "Ah, you were surgeon, and so shocked. You, whom I have seen, with no tremble of hand or heart, do operations of life and death that make the rest shudder. Oh, but I must not forget, my dear friend John, that you loved her, and I have not forgotten it, for it is that I shall operate, and you must only help. I would like to do it tonight, but for Arthur I must not. He will be free after his father's funeral tomorrow, and he will want to see her, to see it. Then when she is coffined, ready for the next day, you and I shall come when all sleep. We shall unscrew the coffin lid and shall do our operation, and then replace all so that none know save we alone. But why do it all? The girl is dead. Why mutilate her poor body without need? And if there is no necessity for a post-mortem and nothing to gain by it, no good to her, to us, to science, to human knowledge, why do it? Without such, it is monstrous. For answers, he put his hand on my shoulder and said with infinite tenderness, "Friend John, I pity your poor bleeding heart, and I love you the more because it does so bleed. If I could, I would take on myself the burden that you do bear. But there are things that you know not, but that you shall know, and bless me for knowing, though they are not pleasant things. John, my child, you have been my friend now many years, and yet did you ever know me to do any without good cause? I may err, I am but a man, but I believe in all I do. Was it not for these causes that you sent for me when the great trouble came? Yes, were you not amazed? Nay, horrified when I would not let Arthur kiss his love, though she was dying, and snatched him away by all my strength? Yes, and yet you saw how she thanked me with her so beautiful dying eyes, her voice too, so weak, and she kissed my wrath old hand and blessed me. Yes, and did you not hear me swear, promise to her that so she closed her eyes, graceful, dreadful? Yes. Well, I have good reason now for all I want to do. You have for many years trusted me. You have believed me weeks past when there be things so strange that you might have well done. Ah, fuck. It's not John speaking. Well, I have good reason now for all I want to do. You have for many years trusted me. You have believed me weeks past when there be things so strange that you might have well doubt. Believe me yet a little, friend John. If you trust me not, then I must tell what I think, and that is not perhaps well. And if I work, as work I shall, no matter trust or no trust, without my friend trust in me, I work with happy heart, and feel, oh, so lonely when I want all help and courage that may be. He paused a moment and went on solemnly. Friend John, there are strange and terrible days before us. Let us not be two, but one, that so we work to a good end. Will you not have faith in me? I took his hand and promised him. I held any doors open as he went away and watched him go into his room and close the doors. As I stood without moving, I saw one of the maids pass silently along the passage. She had her back towards me, so did not see me, and go into the room where Lucy lay. The sight touched me. Devotion is so rare, and we are so grateful to those who show it, unasked to those we love. Here was a poor girl, putting aside the terrors which she naturally had of death, to go watch alone by the bier of the mistress whom she loved, so that the poor clay might not be lonely till late to eternal rest. I must have slept long and soundly, for it was broad daylight when Van Helsing waked me by coming into my room. He came over to my bedside and said, You need not trouble about the knives. We shall not do it. Why not? I asked, for a solemnity of the night before had greatly impressed me. Because, he said sternly, it is too late or too early. See? Here he held up the little golden crucifix. This was stolen in the night. How stolen? I asked in wonder. Since you have it now. Because I get it back from the worthless wretch who stole it from the woman who robbed the dead and the living. Her punishment will surely come, but not through me. She knew not altogether what she did, and thus, unknowing, she only stole. Now we must wait. The forenoon was a dreary time, but at noon the solicitor came. Mr. Marquand of Holman, Sons, Marquand and Littledale, who was very genial and very appreciative of what we had done, and took off our hands all cares as to details. During lunch he told us that Mrs. Westenra had for some time expected some death from her heart, and had put her affairs in absolute order. He informed us that with the exception of a certain entailed property, Flossy's father, which now, in default of direct issue, went back to a distant branch of the family, the whole estate, real and personal, was left absolutely to Arthur Holmwood. When he had told us so much, he went on. Frankly, we did our best to prevent such a testamentary disposition, and pointed out certain contingencies that might leave her daughter either penniless or not so free as she should be to act regarding a matrimonial alliance. Indeed, we pressed the matter so far that we almost came into collision, for she asked us if we were or were not prepared to carry out her wishes. Of course, we had then no alternative but to accept. We were right in principle, and 99 times out of 100 we should have proved, by the logic of events, the accuracy of our judgment. Frankly, however, I must admit that in this case any other form of disposition would have rendered impossible the carrying out of her wishes, for by her predeceasing her daughter, the latter would have come into possession of the property, and even had she only survived her mother by 5 minutes, her property would, in case there were no will, and a will was a practical impossibility in such a case, have been treated at her decease as under intestacy, in which case Lord Godalming, though so dear a friend, would have had no claim in the world, and the inheritors, being remote, would not be likely to abandon their just rights for sentimental reasons regarding an entire stranger. I assure you, my dears sirs, I am rejoiced at the result, perfectly rejoiced. He was a good fellow, but his rejoicing at the one little part in which he officially was interested of so great a tragedy was an object lesson in the limitation of sympathetic understanding. He did not remain long, but said he would look in later in the day and see Lord Godalming. His coming, however, had been a certain comfort to us, since it assured us that we should not have to dread hostile criticism as to any of our acts. Arthur was expected at 5 o'clock, so a little before that time we visited the death chamber. It was so in very truth, for now both mother and daughter lay in it. The undertaker, true to his craft, had made the best display he could of his goods, and there was a mortuary air about the place that lowered our spirits at once. Then Helsing ordered the former arrangement to be adhered to, explaining that as Lord Godalming was to see all that was left of his fiancée quite alone. The undertaker seemed shocked at his own stupidity, and exerted himself to restore things to the condition on which we left them the night before, so that when Arthur came, such shocks to his feelings as we could avoid were saved. next time, next part, next funny story of Dracula. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next time and give this video a like. Yes, you like it. You want it.